U.S. National Security Advisor Brzezinski flew to Pakistan to set about rallying resistance. He wanted to arm the Mujahideen without revealing America's role. On the Afghan border near the Khyber Pass, he urged the soldiers of God to redouble their efforts.
We know of their deep belief in God, and we are confident that their struggle will succeed. That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your fight will prevail and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again because your cause is right and God is on your side.
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting. How? Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of Mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan. And we were successful. The Soviets left Afghanistan, and then we said, great, goodbye, leaving these trained people who were fanatical in Afghanistan and Pakistan, leaving them well armed, creating a mess, frankly, that at the time we didn't really recognize. We were just so happy to see the Soviet Union fall, and we thought, okay, fine, we're okay now. Everything's going to be so much better. Now you look back, the people we're fighting today, we were supporting in the fight against the Soviets.
Dernier élément à propos des attentats et de l'Afghanistan, ces informations de Radio France Internationale et du Figaro. Oussama Ben Laden aurait été soigné à Dubaï en juillet dernier à l'hôpital américain. Un représentant de la CIA l'aurait même rencontré à cette occasion. Information catégoriquement démentie aujourd'hui par l'hôpital en question. Bernard Lebrun.
Assassiné par des terroristes. C'est ainsi que le FBI lance la campagne d'arrestation de Ben Laden, prime de la police 5 millions de dollars. Et pourtant, juillet 2001, Ben Laden rencontre la CIA à Dubaï, selon le Figaro. Les faits, Oussama Ben Laden aurait quitté secrètement le Pakistan le 4 juillet pour se faire soigner aux Émirats pendant 10 jours. Pas n'importe où, dans cet hôpital américain par un urologue américain. Malade, à 44 ans, Ben Laden souffrirait de calculs rénaux et d'insuffisance rénale. Voici l'auteur de cette enquête. Il affirme qu'un responsable local de la CIA aurait rendu visite à Ben Laden dans sa chambre.
Il faudra encore vérifier si cette visite a eu l'aval de la hiérarchie, puisque le responsable local de la CIA de Dubaï a quitté Dubaï le 15 juillet, c'est-à-dire quelques jours après cette rencontre, pour rentrer aux États-Unis.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. Starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." The truth is about the Middle East is, had there been no oil there, it would be like Africa. Nobody is threatening to intervene in Africa. The problem is the opposite. We keep asking for people to intervene and stop it. And there's no question that the presence of petroleum throughout the region has sparked great power involvement.
In 2012, your agency was saying, quote, the Salafists, the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda in Iraq are the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria. Mm-hmm. In 2012, the US was helping coordinate arms transfers to those same groups. Why did you not stop that if you're worried about the rise of quote-unquote Islamic extremism?
I mean, I hate to say it's not my job, but my job was to ensure that the accuracy of our intelligence that was being presented was as good as it could be. And I will tell you, it goes before 2012. I mean, when we were in Iraq, and we still had decisions to be made before there was a decision to pull out of Iraq in 2011. I mean, it was very clear what we were going to face.
Well, I admire your frankness on this subject.
Very clear what we were going to face.
Let me just, before we move on, just to clarify once more, you are basically saying that even in government at the time, you knew those groups were around, you saw this analysis, and you were arguing against it, but who wasn't listening?
I think the administration.
The administration turned a blind eye to your analysis.
I don't know if they turned a blind eye. I think it was a decision. I think it was a willful decision.
A willful decision to go support an insurgency that had Salafists, Al-Qaeda, and Muslim Brotherhood.
A willful decision to do what they're doing.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces. I
think the biggest risk that comes from Russia's operations in Syria is an accidental conflict or an accidental skirmish with the U.S.-led ISIS coalition.
The city's been in the hands of jihadists for just under a year now, but up to 30,000 Iraqi troops now are closing in on that stronghold. Almost all residents have fled. And Iraq's also just revealed, too, the amount of weapons it lost to Islamic State recently. Baghdad's admitted losing more than 2,000 Humvees and other weapons when it lost the city of Mosul to the jihadists last year. The extremists posted these images online, indeed, claiming that they seized US-supplied hardware. And that's far from the only case, too, when American weapons appear to have ended up in the hands of Islamic State. We obtained this video showing the Iraqi military entering a warehouse abandoned by the jihadists. It was littered with US-supplied equipment. Over the border, too, last year in Syria, the US mistakenly airdropped weapons right into Islamic State's hands. We obtained this video showing the Iraqi military entering a warehouse abandoned by the jihadists. It was littered with US-supplied equipment. Over the border, too, last year in Syria, the US mistakenly airdropped weapons right into Islamic State's hands.
Hillary Clinton has described already the meeting in the White House over 2 years ago. Everyone in the National Security Team recommended arming ISIS. Everyone in the National Security Team recommended arming ISIS.
That is a recipe very quickly, my friends, business people here, for the American dollar to cease to be the reserve currency of the world, which is already bubbling out there.